All right. So let's explore these more main domains available in short. So in computation, we are going to discuss on services such as EC2. So EC2 basically is the virtual servers in cloud. That means if we want to deploy any servers for hosting our application, then we can deploy them by using the component of VPC here, or we can say EC2 here. So in EC2, we can deploy the servers, same like we install and deploy the multiple servers for hosting application. In AWS, for deploying the servers, we can deploy them as a part of EC2 instance. EC2 refers to Elastic Cloud Compute. And then we have Amazon ECS. ECS refers to Elastic Container Service. Just like we have Kubernetes. In case you have been familiar with the entire DevOps environment, then we have Kubernetes, which basically allows us to manage the entire cluster of Docker containers. So here we have service such as ECS for allowing us to do that. Then we have Lambda. Lambda is basically a serverless computing platform. That means for any application, if you do not need to deploy the entire cluster of servers, that means we need to deploy the entire EC2 instance, then we can choose the computation serverless computing platform by the name of Lambda, where we can choose to deploy the services, where we can have the entire computation done exactly as per the requirement, so that we don't have to keep the entire servers ideally if we have only a short requirement for processing only for a couple of seconds. For example, let's say when we are building any chatbot system, on the website, and once the entire user response has been recorded by those chatbots, we need to process it as well. We need to process that chatbot, right? So for processing that chatbot, if we want to look for the available tickets, if this would have been a travel based site, now we want to process the information being entered by the user and find the most relevant ticket, or if we want to update this in any of the CRM available. So for this kind of processing, we can either deploy a full-fledged server, but we are going to process this only for a couple of seconds. So it won't be wise enough to keep a server idle for an hour to process only for a few seconds. So in that case, we can use a service such as Lambda, so that we can use Lambda to process those, we can say, few seconds of processing time, and then we have to pay only for those fraction of seconds, nothing less, nothing more, that we are going to focus on step by step as we move further with the course here as a part of serverless computing platform. And ECS is same like Kubernetes. So in case we have been working with Docker containers, in case we have been working with DevOps, so just like we have Kubernetes, which allows us to manage multiple Docker containers, we have ECS as a service offered by AWS. Next we are going to discuss on the concept of storage services. So in storage, we are going to discuss on block storage, where we have EBS. EBS refers to Elastic Block Store. So just like every PC needs to have a storage defined, that means if we are creating any PC here, we need to have a storage defined, correct? So same way, every server also needs to have a storage, then only can start working. So EBS is now using EBS, we can attach multiple storage volumes to the EC2 instance that we are going to deploy, that we are going to discuss. Then we have for object storage options, like we have Google Drive, we have Dropbox, where we can store any kind of file, and if we want to share those files, we can easily do that. So these components are being given to us by the S3 components here, and that's why it is called as storage services. That's why it is called as storage services offered. And then we have file storage. So basically in EBS volume, we can attach only one volume. So that means this particular volume can be attached to only one server. Same as the internal hard disk that we have, that can be attached to only one instance or one PC at a time. But if we want to create a complete file structure and we want to host that complete file structure on multiple servers, then we have to do that by using EFS. EFS refers to Elastic File Structure, where we can define the entire file structure and we can share it on multiple cluster of servers. And then we have Snowball. So Snowball is basically used for physical migration of data sets. So if we want to migrate 100 TB of data from on-premise to AWS S3, then we can request for these physical device offered by AWS. So by using this physical device, we can migrate our entire 100 TB of data set in just a couple of days by using the components of Snowball. And then for storage services, we have, again, we also have the component for storage gateway. So basically it acts like a bridge. It acts like a bridge so that we can use it for a continuous migration of our on-premise data, and we can store a copy of them in the cloud platforms. And then we have direct connect. So direct connect is basically a physical line. That means if you don't want to rely over internet for getting connected to AWS services, if you want to rely over the concept of we want to set up a fiber connection. We want to set up a fiber connection between our office and the AWS servers. Then we can request for that connection by using direct connect as a service, where the team have under 2 months they will be setting up a physical optical fiber connection. That and through that we can maintain a consistent network connection of having a, we can say, a bandwidth of 10 Gbps as well. Right? And then we have third-party connectors where we can create, where we can connect the AWS with multiple services by using these third-party connectors. And then we have transfer acceleration, which simply increases the speed with which we can transfer data in among multiple regions in AWS. And then we have Kinesis. So Kinesis is basically an analytical dashboard that we can create for visualizing and data set, especially useful for the components of big data. Right? And Snowball is basically used as a physical device. For example, if we want to improve, we can say export 100 TB of our on-premise storage, we can say on-premise data set into the S3 service. Then we can load the entire data into the Snowball physical device, and then we can have this device taken back to AWS environment, and then AWS team will simply migrate the entire data set into S3 by using this Snowball physical device. All right, and ephemeral is basically like a temporary storage, which means ephemeral is the default storage that we can add for the EC2. That means as soon as we terminate the instance, this entire storage is going to be, if we can say, is going to be gone as a part of ephemeral storage. And if we want to attach multiple volumes, we can attach that. So are we clear on the complete overview for these services till this point? Again, not in depth, just an overview for the services, because we are going to discuss these services in detail anyhow. So are we all clear on the entire overview for these services? Please give me a quick information, everyone. By using the Kinesis dashboard. And EC2 is a physical service offered by AWS through which we can deploy multiple servers. Wonderful. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. And then in networking, we are going to discuss on the concept for VPC. VPC is basically used for creating a complete virtual network. That means if we have a requirement of creating a complete network where we have a complete control on what kind of access we want to give. For example, if we have a requirement of creating multi-tier architecture, as in if we want to create a public subnet where we want to store multiple web servers, where we want to give the access to the internet gateway for full access to internet, and for storing the application servers and databases, we want to give them a, we can say, limited access to internet. Then we can connect them by the NAT gateway, where we can define the access control list, where we can define security groups, and we can have a complete control on how the access is given. So if we want to have a complete control on the access level, then we can create a VPC in the given region. VPC refers to virtual private cloud. And direct connect, as we discussed, is basically used for a direct connection between our corporate data center and the AWS services. And then Route 53 service is basically used for distribution of the entire load. For example, if we have a requirement that we have a domain, and now we want to map this domain to any of the load balancers or any of the instances that we have structured in AWS, then for mapping that domain, we have to use the Route 53 service, where we can also define the entire flow of the application, we can flow of the traffic as well. All right, that is what we have as a part of networking module. Then it comes down to security. So using security parameters, we can use components such as IAM. So IAM will allow us to create the set of users, and then we can define then we can define easily how exactly we want to create the users, how we can create the users, how we can define the policies for them. That means what kind of access they'll be having, what kind of roles we want to assign for different services. That means entire control on the account can be achieved by using IAM. Just like we have Active Directory as a service available in Azure platform. And then we have WAF offered as a workflow service where we can define the entire workflow of the application. And then we have AWS Shield, which is basically used for securing the entire network by from any kind of DDoS attack happening. And then we are going to discuss on the entire concept of KMS as well, through which we can generate multiple key pairs for encryption and decryption of the dataset that we have on our AWS account. And then we are going to discuss on database services, where we are going to discuss in detail on RDS being a part of relation database service. Then we are going to discuss on DynamoDB, where DynamoDB is basically in RDS we can deploy any kind of databases engines. For example, if we are looking to deploy MySQL engine, MariaDB, Postgre, Microsoft SQL Server, we want to deploy Amazon's own Aurora, then we can use these we can use this platform, we can use these database engines to deploy the entire services on RDS. And then we can deploy then we can choose DynamoDB, where DynamoDB is basically a no SQL database service where we can use it for storing or we can semi-structured to unstructured data set, where we can have schema-less data structure being defined. Then we have Elasticache, which is basically an in-memory cache management system through which we can improvise the performance of the Elasticache service. For you can integrate that with any MySQL application, and then we can improvise the performance there. And then we have Redshift. So Redshift is basically our data warehousing service where we can use it for the analysis and reporting method. All right. All right. So now aws.azure or .amazon.com for containers, custom engagement, data